So I'm in from Philadelphia, and I spent the week here in San Francisco like I do a couple of times a year. How many people here are from San Francisco would call, sorry, let me restate that. How many people would call San Francisco home? Show of hands. How many of you made a choice to be in San Francisco? All right, so I want to tell you a little story about the other version of that choice. So I went to Drexel University in Philadelphia. That was how I found my way into a big city in the first place, from some corn and horse farms about an hour north of Philadelphia. And I also meandered my way into web technology, creative business. I was one of those internet web types, a rarity in Philadelphia at the time, or at least it seemed. Because the problem that I had is I was progressing my skills, and I was progressing my professional and personal relationships through the industry, was I felt like I was hitting a ceiling. And every time I looked out my window, I saw San Francisco. And I said, that's where my people are. And so like every nerd does, they're like, oh man, it'd be so cool, I get a job in San Francisco, and then do this terrible commute to Mountain View, and all of these things that I'm sure many of you know that I don't have to deal with. And so I was doing some work with some folks that started one of the earliest co-working spaces in the co-working movement, Citizen Space, just on the other side of SoMa. Chris Messina and Tara Hunt, I started doing some work with their consulting firm, and they sort of exposed me to this idea of collaborative working, but they had also worked with Bar Camp, and so this idea of making an action more of a movement, how we start giving this away. So that was sort of just to give a little bit of pretext, that was sort of my first introduction to how to create a movement, was with Chris Messina, Tara Hunt, Bar Camp, and co-working. And so while I was working with them, they introduced me to some opportunities to get that job and move to Silicon Valley, and woohoo. And so I'm at this inflection point in my life where I can choose to move myself and my girlfriend 3,000 miles across the country for a job at a company that couldn't quite get their shit together, and instead said, you know, I don't think this is the right decision. And I said, thank you, but no thank you. And that was a dark time. It was one of the most difficult decisions I made in my life. I thought I was making the right decision, but it took a lot of introspection to figure out why. And so what happened next was I took that as a time to reflect and go, why was I trying to leave Philadelphia again? And it goes back to that, those are my people. And what I realized was it wasn't that I didn't like Philadelphia, it was that I didn't see people that were like me. I was looking for cool, interesting, creative people doing amazing things on the internet. And it's not that they weren't in Philadelphia, I just didn't know where to find them. It was easier to find them in San Francisco than it was in my own backyard. I said, this is a problem. And so I did the extreme version of what I would recommend anybody do, especially in San Francisco, and that's go to every single meetup you hear about. Luckily, Philadelphia didn't have tons of them, but there were lots of interesting things going on, lots of different industries, stuff that was relevant to what I thought I was interested in, but there was stuff that I didn't know if I was going to be interested or not. But what I was interested in finding out was where the cool, interesting, creative people were doing cool, interesting, creative things. And luckily, I found them. One after another, after another, after another. And the cool thing about finding these people was not only that, oh my God, they're in my backyard, these are my people, but they were also having a hard time finding cool, interesting, creative people doing cool, interesting, creative things. I said, hey friends, new friends, let's start a little club. Let's go find cool, interesting, creative things happening in our backyard, because there's so many other amazing things about Philadelphia. How many people here have been to Philadelphia for more than just like a layover? A couple hands go down. It's an international airport, right? So great food and super walkable and amazing history and arts and culture, and not without its problems. I'm like, this is a place that I can call home. And I don't know why on earth I'd want to leave that behind. And so we started getting this group together of other people that had sort of made that same very conscious choice to stay in Philadelphia because they loved it for reasons other than their profession and their career. And as we started meeting more of these people, we realized that we were starting to build that support network that maybe we longed for and didn't know how to find before. And as time goes on and these relationships build, and quite frankly, this comes down to going to lots of the same meetups. Actually, there's this really cool experience. How many people have seen Fight Club? Remember Jack and Marla are going to the self-help groups, and they realize that they're bumping into each other and they might be up to the same thing? I like to call it the Marla Singer effect. When you start going to a lot of meetups and you start seeing the same faces, you're like, you're a junkie too, I knew it. So I started going to those people. Those are my super connectors, right? And I'm like, we don't have to go to the same meetups anymore. You can go to this one, I can go to this one. We'll grab a beer tomorrow and catch up and know what's going on. And so this network of people starts sort of organically forming, and we're interested in the work that we're doing and progressing our professional careers and relationships. But because we're doing this in this very social way, lots of parties, lots of bars, lots of meetup groups, we're just as interested in each other, in this sort of mutual self-interest, that we're going through this process of discovering ourselves and rediscovering our city together. And this is where community comes from. This is where you go from not knowing where your tribe is to realizing that it's all around you. So fast forward 6 months or so, and we've got around 30 people that are on the regular doing things like this. And one thing that was really key in terms of this being sort of a working capacity was that we needed a place to work. So we started doing casual co-working, or jelly, if you've heard of it referred to that way, where basically you, instead of working from your living room or from a bar or a cafe, anywhere that has Wi-Fi and won't toss you out, you go there with other people instead of by yourself. It's a very intentional, purposeful being around other people and realizing that that improves quality of life while you're working. And as we start working together but not on the same things, we realize that we have the best version of work possible. We have amazing coworkers that aren't our bosses, that aren't our colleagues vying for the same promotions, but at the same time are people that can teach us things and can inspire us and challenge us to do better. So we're literally like one step away from having the best place in the world to work. We just need a place in the world to work. And so we say to the group, hey group, what if we had a place where we could do this every day? And that's where co-working comes in. And so together we assemble. We saw slides earlier about the raising a barn together. It's a very historical community activity. We really took that approach to saying, this is physical infrastructure, let's build it together. We've come this far together, why stop now? And going from this being a very amorphous thing, this sort of club to a clubhouse, perhaps, again, yet another social experience, bringing people together and working towards the best working environment possible. And I think what we realized that we didn't know all along the way, that the path to the best place to work is not the best office, it's the best coworkers. And so over the last 4 years, we've been running a co-working space. Much like TEDxSoMa, we grew from an 1,800 square foot office to a 5,000 square foot office. From that initial group of 20 people to over 150, almost 200 people on our monthly roster, and literally thousands of people that we've impacted and connected with through other events, groups, meetups, so on and so forth. And the beautiful thing is my initial actions as a catalyst in bringing people together have become the reflections of the catalysts that came together. And they're now teaching the next generation of people to inspire one another, to mobilize into action, and to create the background, the backyard that we wanted for ourselves. So where do we go from here? We've got this amazing office, this amazing place to work, and sort of this realization that the key to better workplace is better co-workers. And so we start thinking about, well, how do we make this bigger? Do we grow this to a massive Google-sized complex of offices and lots more coworkers and lots more industries and things like that? And we said, well, maybe. But what if we were to grow community organically out instead of up? Since what we've really created so far is really an organism that's self-perpetuating its own growth. It's our job to make sure that the infrastructure is there to help it grow, to nurture it to grow in a useful and valuable way, and create these meaningful experiences for our members and our friends. And so rather than just grow up, we said, well, what would out look like? And so the final frontier for us that we're working on today, now that we've pinned work and play, remember parties in an office, what's left is live. Where do we live? And we heard some amazing conversations about neighborhoods, and I've heard the word neighborhood is resonating with me today because it's really close to what I'm doing right now. And the idea is, how can we take the principles of evolving from a blank canvas of people who didn't know each other into a robust and sustainable working community and use the same practices to build a new neighborhood? We can reinvent an urban neighborhood. And so what we're actually working on right now is going back to square one. This is not taking a co-working space and slapping some hostel on the side of it. This is, how do you design a place to live with the people that will live in it in an urban setting so that it has a positive impact on the quality of life in your living space? So to sort of connect these two ideas, along the path of creating Indy Hall, we realized that we needed a common goal. We needed a common mission, something that people could say themselves, take ownership of, and share with other people. And we worked through a lot of versions of that statement, but the one that stuck really, really hard was making Philadelphia a better place to make a living doing what you love. That's what we care about. And that doesn't exclude any industries, it doesn't exclude any age, any level of experience. It says, if you want to make a living doing what you love, and you want to do it in Philadelphia, this is your crew. So we expand that, as I said, grow out instead of up, and say, make Philadelphia a better place to do what you love, whether it's professionally or personally. And that's where we've gotten to today. That's where we're taking an organic community exploration experiment, me finding my tribe and aiding others in finding theirs along the way. And I think what we're working towards is reinventing an urban neighborhood, and I can't wait to live in it. Thank you for having me. Thank you, TEDxSoMa.